me. I'm Menopause Taylor, your educator, and this is an education that will enable you to manage your menopause your way. And nowadays, the way for many women consists of using compounded HRT. So that's what I'll address today. With all the popularity of what most women refer to as bioidentical HRT these days, you really need to watch this video. It will dispel some inadequate labels as well as make sure you know the truth about using compounded HRT for your long-term goals. I'll teach you why compounding can be confounding. And since estrogen is the only hormone that matters for preventing diseases of estrogen deficiency, estrogen is the only hormone we'll discuss today. This video is really a much more detailed version of anything you're going to find in my book, whether you have the first edition or the second edition. So even if you have the book, be sure to watch this video. Now, last week I presented the minimal necessary dosage of estrogen for preventing the three big diseases, which are heart attack, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's. I explained that each different kind of estrogen has a designated proven threshold dosage below which you will not prevent these diseases. Here's the chart I showed you revealing all the different kinds of estrogen along with the minimal necessary dosage of each. Focus in on the last two items on the list. They are the compounded forms of estrogen. And notice that although I've designated the minimal necessary dosage as 2.5 milligrams for both, there is also a notation that they are not reliable. So let's start at the beginning and work our way through the reasons they are not reliable. You see, I want you to understand the reasons for everything. And the very first thing to clear up is the meaning of the word bioidentical. If you don't understand the true meaning of that word, you will have many misconceptions and make a lot of mistakes with your menopause management. So the word bioidentical means only one thing. It means that the molecules of the hormone are identical in chemical structure to the molecules of the same hormone that your own body used to produce. The word bioidentical has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not the hormone is a pharmaceutical product or a compounded product. Bioidentical hormones are available from both the pharmaceutical and the compounding industries. Most women mistakenly use the word bioidentical when they mean compounded. This error is rampant. The words bioidentical and compounded do not mean the same thing. Likewise, the words bioidentical and pharmaceutical are not opposites. So be specific. If you want a pharmaceutical product, say so. If you want a compounded product, say so. If you want a bioidentical product, add that to the words pharmaceutical or compounded. You can use a bioidentical pharmaceutical product or a bioidentical compounded product. But they are not the same. And that's the very reason for this very important video. This distinction is so critical. If you expect any hope of getting what you want to manage your menopause your way, you must use the proper words to describe your preferences. So if you want bioidentical hormones, you can get them from either a pharmaceutical company or a compounding company. But there are huge differences between the two. And that's why you need to fully understand what I'm teaching you in this video. Now, back in the day, when your body produced estrogen, it produced three different molecular forms of estrogen. Estrone, O-N-E, for one. Estradiol, D-I, for two. And estriol, T-R-I, for three. Estrone, estradiol, and estriol. And each of these estrogens served a different function. Estrone was produced by your fat cells. It served to make you fat in places where you want fat. And if you still have fat cells, it's still on board, serving to make you fat, but probably in places you'd prefer not to have fat, like your abdomen. Estradiol bathed every cell of your body, and it served many different functions. Overall, it functioned as your fountain of youth. In your heart, it kept your heart arteries soft and supple, lowered your cholesterol, and prevented plaque buildup in your arteries. In your bones, it filled the estrogen receptors that kept your bones dense. And in your brain, it filled the estrogen receptors that made your thinking clear and crisp and prevented your brain from shrinking. Estradiol is what you lose at post-menopause, and its loss is what causes all your symptoms of post-menopause. And its loss is what causes you to have a high risk of heart attack, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's. Estriol is the estrogen your body produced to support a pregnancy. It was progesterone's partner in making sure the pregnancy was protected. It did absolutely nothing for you personally, and your body does not produce it or need it now. Of the three estrogens your body produced, estriol is the weakest of all. And that's because progesterone did most of the work of supporting a pregnancy. So the only one of these three bioidentical estrogens that has any significance for you at all now is estradiol. It's the one you need to replace if you want to prevent the diseases of estrogen deficiency. So if I show you that list of estrogens again, you're going to see that with very few exceptions, the estrogens in the rows above the last two rows consist of estrogens that all specify estradiol. And the ones that don't specify estradiol and don't say estradiol, like conjugated estrogen and estropipate, are actually estradiol too. They just don't have the word estradiol in the name. All these estrogens above the last two rows are pharmaceutical estrogens, and yet they all consist of estradiol, a bioidentical estrogen. And all but one of them consists of nothing but estradiol, which means they are 100% estradiol. So with pharmaceutical bioidentical estradiol, you get 100% estradiol. This means you get 100% of the one and only estrogen that can prevent the diseases of estrogen deficiency. And there is a minimal necessary dosage of each for doing that. Now, let's contrast everything I just told you about pharmaceutical bioidentical estrogen with compounded bioidentical estrogen. Take a look at that chart again. This time focus on the last two rows. Notice the names of the estrogen products listed in the last two rows. They are compounded bi-est and compounded tri-est. Now let's dissect those terms to get at the root of the difference. The names of the two compounded estrogens on our list are bi-est and tri-est. Bi-est means two estrogens, and tri-est means three estrogens. Bi-est and tri-est are the two batches of compounded estrogens that compounding pharmacies make. So, a few minutes ago, I told you that all pharmaceutical bioidentical estrogens consist of 100% estradiol, the one and only estrogen you want back when you take estrogen replacement. Well, obviously, if the names of these compounded estrogens are bi-est and tri-est, and they contain 2 or 3 estrogens, they will not consist of 100% estradiol. And that means they contain some of the estrogens you don't want back when you become postmenopausal. These bi-est and tri-est compounded formulations follow the philosophy of the alternative community, which tries to mimic the same combination of estrogens you had during your reproductive years, even though you are well past your reproductive years. Back when you were a sexy young reproductive woman in your premenopausal days, you had the following ratio of the 3 hormones. You had estrone 10%, estradiol 10%, and estriol 80%. So these 2 compounded formulations mimic that ratio. Triest, with all 3 of the bioidentical estrogens, contains the very same ratio you had back then. Estrone 10%, estradiol 10%, and estriol 80%. Biest, on the other hand, contains only estradiol and estriol in the following ratio. Estradiol 20% and estriol 80%. So it lacks estrone altogether. In biest, there's no estrone because you are still producing it. And you already hate it because it makes you fat. So they just leave that one out. But still, you only get 20% estradiol. Now, think about the topic of this discussion. We are addressing the minimal necessary dosages of estradiol required to prevent the 3 fatal diseases. And with pharmaceutical estrogens, you get 100% estradiol in those dosages. But with compounded estrogens, you get only 10 to 20% estradiol in the dosages designated as the minimal necessary dosage. Do you see how far off the mark that is? If preventing these diseases requires a definitive minimal dosage of estradiol, you can't afford to decrease that dosage by 80 to 90% and still hope to meet your goal of preventing them. So the first reason compounded estrogens are unreliable for preventing diseases due to estrogen deficiency is because you do not get a high enough dosage of the one and only estrogen you need for preventing diseases due to estrogen deficiency, which is estradiol. Instead, you get a measly 10 to 20% of what you need. This is one reason why compounding can be confounding for meeting your long-term goals. Now, what if, theoretically, you could get a 100% estradiol product from a compounding pharmacy? Would that cut it in terms of being able to prevent the 3 big diseases of estrogen deficiency? The answer is no. And the reason is that despite the purported 100% estradiol, you can't count on getting that from a compounding pharmacy. Why not? Because of the compounding industry itself. One of the most basic things you have to understand about your HRT options for managing your menopause is the differences in the 2 industries that produce HRT products. So let's address the differences between the pharmaceutical industry and the compounding industry. First, we'll talk about the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry is very heavily regulated. Every single product produced by the pharmaceutical industry must adhere to a very strict process laid out by the governing body for that country. In the U.S., it's the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA. In the UK, it's the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, or MHRA. Here's a list of a whole bunch of these regulatory bodies across the globe. Regardless of the country or regulatory agency, the approval process for any pharmaceutical product is long and expensive. In the US, it requires 12 years, over $350 million, and 3 phases of clinical trials before a drug can be marketed to the public. All pharmaceutical products undergo tremendous research before they can be marketed to the public. The policy of the pharmaceutical companies is that a drug is considered unsafe until it is proven safe for its intended purpose. And pharmaceutical drug manufacturers must provide the regulatory body evidence of safety and effectiveness before marketing the drug. And even after marketing it, the regulatory body follows up on adverse effects. So when it comes to pharmaceutical products, quality, consistency, and reliability are guaranteed by the approval process. This means that every single tablet, every single patch, every single container of gel, or whatever, is identical. It means that every batch of the medication is identical. It guarantees that there are no contaminants. You know that the product is exactly what it claims to be and contains only the ingredients that are listed on the package. This is why you get a huge insert with every pharmaceutical product telling you everything that is known about it and divulging all the possible risks and side effects. Most people find it pretty scary. It discloses everything you could want to know and even some things you probably don't want to know. But the compounding industry does not operate in the same way. In contrast to the strict guidelines of the pharmaceutical industry, the compounding industry is entirely unregulated. There is no oversight at all. Likewise, there is no research or clinical trials. The manufacturer of a compounded drug does not have to prove anything to anybody before marketing the drug. The word compounding means combining. So compounding pharmacies combine substances on their own to produce compounded products. And compounding pharmacies are freestanding entities that can get materials from anywhere. They don't have to divulge their origin. They don't have to be pure or uncontaminated. They do not even have to be what they claim to be. And there is no way for you as a consumer to trace the origins or quality of any compounded product. A compounding pharmacy independently converts the raw product, be it wild yam, soy, or whatever, into a hormone. And usually, it's in the form of a pill or a cream. But there is absolutely no guarantee that every single pill, or every single container, or every single gel, or whatever, is identical. It means that no 2 batches of the product are identical. And there is no guarantee of the purity of the product and no certainty that there are no contaminants. There is no way for you to know that the product is exactly what it claims to be or that it contains only the ingredients listed on the package. Since there is no approval process, the manufacturer of a compounded product does not have to divulge all possible side effects or risks of taking the product. This is why compounded products are not covered by insurance. It's also why you don't get an insert with compounded products. At most, you might get a typewritten sheet by the individual compounding pharmacy that constitutes advertising of the product rather than disclosing side effects and risks. So the second reason compounded estrogens are unreliable for preventing diseases due to estrogen deficiency is because the industry that produces them is entirely unregulated and does nothing to guarantee what's in them. Once again, think about the topic of this discussion. We are addressing the minimal necessary dosages of estradiol necessary to prevent 3 fatal diseases. And with compounded estrogens, you don't know what you're getting. You can't count on disease prevention from products produced by an industry that has no regulation whatsoever. That would constitute playing Russian roulette or roulette with your health. And it makes compounding confounding for meeting your long-term goals. Now, I know that if you're a fan of the compounding industry, you are probably not very happy with me right now. But that's all right. I would much rather have you angry with me for telling you the truth than have you angry with me for not telling you the truth. Now let me add one more thing to this discussion. Pellets. You know, I am just so shocked at some of the fads that catch on. And some of them are incredibly illogical, and in some instances, deceitful. And bioidentical hormone pellets qualify for both. These pellets are a fad promoted by the alternative community, but lately, a lot of traditional medical professionals are pushing them too. And the people who use them push them. They consist entirely of compounded bioidentical hormones. So pellets cannot prevent any of the diseases due to estrogen deficiency. But instead of containing only estrogen of unknown identity, they also contain testosterone of unknown identity. Most women don't need testosterone unless they have low sex drive after getting their estrogen dosage adequate. But these pellets give you testosterone outright. And they are implanted under your skin and remain active for up to 6 months. That means whether you like them or not, whether you have side effects or not, you are stuck with them for at least 6 months. There is no regulation of these pellets by any regulatory body whatsoever, and there is no certainty as to what they contain. They are not covered by insurance. And the fact that they are not covered by insurance is precisely why some traditional medical professionals push them. Insurance reimbursements are so low that doctors have difficulty making enough money to run their practices. But with pellets, the doctor can charge an exorbitant price of these pellets without the limitations imposed by the insurance company. Most professionals who push them are making a fortune off them and you. Usually these professionals require you to get huge panels of meaningless hormone labs before injecting the pellets. And these hormone panels are another huge money maker for the professional and a money drainer for you. So next week, I'll address the issue of hormone levels, hormone labs, for preventing the diseases of estrogen deficiency. What you learned today is that you cannot rely on any compounded product to prevent any of the diseases of estrogen deficiency. They are simply incapable of doing so. Here's a little chart of everything I've told you today. It's very, very simple. I don't really need to walk you through it, but you can find it in the description box link or at menopausetailor.me. I've told you before that knowing the limitations of each option for managing your menopause is absolutely critical for your success. And this tutorial today is an example of that. None of what I teach you has anything to do with what I prefer or what I believe in or what I use myself. I don't push anything. I don't care how you choose to manage your menopause. I will help you manage your menopause any way you choose, whether that be with hormones, non-hormonal medications, diet, lifestyle, vitamins, minerals, supplements, or herbs. All I care about is that you know the capabilities and limitations of each option. I don't want you to look back 10 or 20 years from now and ask, Why didn't anybody tell me that compounded estrogen repellents couldn't prevent heart attack, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's? I want you to know that now. And if you choose to use compounded estrogen anyway, you will do so knowingly and lower your expectations for what you can accomplish. So compounding can be very confounding for preventing the diseases due to estrogen deficiency. Okie dokie, I will see you in a week. Go to Menopause Tailor to schedule consultations. They are very, very popular. And you will get more than you can possibly imagine out of a consultation. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram if you want. And you can subscribe right here. Bye.